Welcome to the Everything's Coming Up Marketing Podcast, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of marketing and mental health. On this show, oversharing is caring. I'm your host, Amber Rhodes. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey y'all, thanks for joining the Everything's Coming Up Marketing Podcast. I'm here today with Sofia Silva joining me
Good
from
question.
Portugal.
I deal with
And
stress
Sofia
by
deals with
catching the
stress
sun,
by
watching comedy TV shows, Office fans, Parks and Rec fans out there. You're my people, and just journaling. I've been journaling for the past couple of days, and it's been really nice.
Okay, wow, there's a lot to dig in there. First of all, what's
Modern
your show
Family.
that you could watch
I think
on repeat and you'll
all the
never get
seasons
tired of
like
it?
3 or 4 times. I just love it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I've seen just the first few seasons, but I do remember it being
I think
pretty
it's just
funny.
so
What is
like
it about Modern
relatable. Like
Family that
all
you
families that
that
have a
you
little bit
love?
of that, they get mad at each other, they scream at each other, but they ultimately love like everyone in the family. And then there's one character, Phil Dunphy, which is a dad, which is basically my dad. So I always like refer back to him when I'm trying to. Hey, my dad does this as well. So it's definitely something that I love. I absolutely love that show. I was shattered when it was over. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
no, but it
exactly.
feels familiar to you, and that's probably why you like it so much.
I
Do you
like
like any
dramatic shows that
dramatic
have a
shows, or
pinch
do you
of
mostly stick
comedy.
to
I love Ted
comedies?
Lasso. I think that's a show that a lot of people love as well. And Afterlife, I don't know if you saw that one with Ricky Gervais. It's a really good show. It has that like drama part of it, and it deals with a lot of heavy subjects, but then it has that more dark comedy side of it as well, that British comedy that I love. So I love those ones as well that have like try to do a lighter approach to more heavy subjects, I would say.
Yeah, I think British comedy, and I think I'm seeing a trend. So with Modern Family, there's kind of an awkwardness to it, and there's the same thing I think with a lot of British comedy where it makes you a little uncomfortable because you're like, "Is this
Yeah.
person in on the joke
Yeah,
or
and I think
not?" Is that something that appeals to you?
yeah, no, I love the British
You
sense
have a
of humor,
very
and Ricky
interesting
Gervais, I
sense
think
of
for me is
humor.
like the master of comedy because there's always that awkwardness and that kind of uncomfortability with the topics that he jokes about, but that you're like, oh yeah, that's true, right? That's completely true what they're joking about and what they're saying. So yeah. Yeah.
And you also
Yeah,
said that
in
you like to get
Portugal,
sun,
we
which I
usually
imagine
joke
is
and say
pretty
that we
easy to
have
do where
the
you
sun
live.
out like 360 days per year. So that's very common here. I don't know if you guys can see, but there's the sun coming in. I recently moved to a new house, so I have a balcony which has like the sun every day. So it's pretty easy for us to get it here, and I love it. I just feel like and I'm so pale and white, which is weird because I really love the sun, but it's something that kind of gives you a boost, just staying there a couple of minutes in the balcony, getting some sun, and then you're ready for the rest of the day.
I think that's so true and something I kind of ignored for a while, and now when I'm having a bad day, my
Hmm.
first thought is, "You probably need to drink some water or stand outside
Yeah,
for a
and for
couple
us in
minutes."
Portugal,
And
like
those
it's
usually
super
make me feel a
common when
little
it's
better.
rainy and dark outside. We usually get really depressed. We don't feel like doing anything because we're so used to having the sun as kind of our fuel. So it's pretty good days when the sun is out. Yeah, not so good.
And not so good when it's raining.
Mhm.
I feel similar. I've always called myself
Yeah,
solar powered, so when
yeah.
it's really dark outside, I'm just grumpy.
Nice.
Now, I forgot to warn you about this next part, so I apologize, but I'll tell you now. I am going to ask you how you're doing, and I hope that you'll give me an honest answer. There is kind of an expectation, especially in the United States, where if someone asks, "How are you doing?" you just say, "I'm good,
Oh,
I'm okay." So I'm going to play a sound effect.
Hey, how you doing?
I don't know if Friends was one of your shows that
I
you
mean,
enjoy. I
it's
can't
not been
remember,
easy
but yeah, how
lately,
you
you
doing,
know?
Sophia?
It, like, just being a marketer, I think everyone feels kind of the same way recently. It's not been easy. And then like with all the house move and kind of this feeling like you're actually getting an adult life right now, it's been a struggle some days. You're feeling like not so good about things. And I feel like in startup life, especially where I work on, it's hard. You have all these challenges that come up, and you don't have the resources right now. No one has, right? So you always have to find these kind of motivation somewhere, and sometimes you just don't have. And I usually joke with Amber, my boss. I'm like, sometimes I just feel like screw this. I don't care about any of this anymore. I'm just going to close my laptop, go anywhere. And she's like, nope, I totally get what you're saying. Sometimes I also want to just like screw this. So it's been challenging.
Yeah, I hear you because we deal with a lot of high highs and low lows in marketing where something goes really well and you're like, "Oh, man, I'm on top of the world." And then you can write a post that flops and your whole day is ruined. And you're like,
Yeah,
"Why are these
yeah.
things equal in
I
my
feel the
mind?
same.
Why do I let it get to me like this?" Yeah. So I'm interested in you said that you recently moved to a new house and that
Mhm.
your new passion is
Yeah,
making
so
it
we moved
a
like a
space
month
that
and a
you
half
love.
ago to our
Tell me about that.
first home together. So it's been really tough, like all the bureaucracy you have to deal with and all of that. But it's also been really fun. I finally have an office space, which is something I didn't have in my parents' home. And it's really nice to kind of differentiate between work and non work and just close the door at the end of the day. So that's something that's really nice. We assembled this amazing bookshelf behind me with like all the books are in alphabetic order, which is something that it was a really interesting project. Uh, but yeah, it's been really nice on the side of like having put all our stuff together and just starting to build a home, right? But it's also challenging just to face the reality that you're not that young anymore. You actually have like responsibilities and stuff that you have to deal with. So that's also something fun to to discover and just to peel those layers of what it really means to be an adult. Mhm.
Yes, adulting. Um, that term that I feel like we probably our generation started hearing it maybe like 10 years ago and we're like, "Ooh, I'm adulting." And you're 18 and you think you're adulting. Like you think that buying gas is adulting, that going to college is adulting, and then you hit real life and it's totally different. You shared with me that it was kind of funny the way that you said it. You were like, "Adult life. Is this all? Is this all there is?" Um, Tell me, like,
I think just a
what
routine
what
that we
has
fall
sparked this
into as
question for
adults,
you?
right? Like I feel like when we're younger, everyone is like, "Oh, you can choose to do whatever you want. You can choose to like travel. You have your friends. You can do anything you want." But then we start to grow up, and we feel like, well, that's not really how it goes, right? We have to have some kind of stability in our lives. We have to have some kind of like routine in our lives. I think just starting to really have that more adult routine where you have to do the laundry, you have to do the dishes, you have to cook, you have to clean, you have to pay bills, all that stuff. And you're like, and then on top of that, you have a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 work. Like you have to go to your job, even though I work remotely, I still have to be at my job for the day. So it's like, okay, but what about everything else? Will I just have the weekends to enjoy in the next 40 years? And it's not something that we think about when we're younger. And I think like you were mentioning, like adulting is having gas and just being able to go to the festivals with your friends, and that's what we think when we're younger. But I feel like true adulting begins when you answer a survey and you're no longer in the 25 years old like age, you know? You're like, no, no, right now you're from 26 to 34. That's what I've been seeing. And I'm like, 34? So, you know, it's fun to discover it though. You're like you kind of discover new parts of yourself. I found out that I love doing laundry. Why? I don't know, but I like it. It's just like I'm putting the laundry
Oh,
together and staying a little bit outside. But it also has some challenges where you're like, is this what I want to do with my life? Do I just want to enjoy the weekends, or do I need to kind of find a new way to rebalance things and also enjoy myself throughout the week? Because otherwise, you're miserable for 5 days in a row, and then you're happy for two, and then you're miserable again, which is, I don't think it's a good approach.
yeah, it's really tough. I think that growing up has its bittersweet moments. I found that when I hit 30, that I was like, "Oh, I don't give a shit about what people think about me anymore," and I felt so much more comfortable in my skin and in who I am. But on the flip side, what you said holds true, where am I just stuck in a routine and I'm not as willing to change. And I do notice that what is today? Thursday? Today is Thursday, and I like it might as well be Monday for as
Hmm.
much as I know,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
days just
And you
slip,
always have
they slip
that
right on by.
that kind of, again, the routine where you're just like waking up, you go to work, you have lunch, you continue working, you clean up the house, you do the dishes, you watch TV, and you go to sleep. So it's always that just realizing that you're falling into that routine is pretty hard sometimes. You're like, no, I'm a fun person. I'm still young. Why am I having this routine? I'm like a 60-year-old. Might as well have dinner at 5 p.m. or something. But it's as you said, it also has that flip side of like, okay, now I have my own things, I have my own, like, you still are able to do what you want, right? But just in a kind of controlled environment, I would say.
Yeah, and I think we're also a lot more cautious with age. So I can do what I want. I could quit my job right now and start a career as a clown, but that doesn't mean that I feel comfortable doing it. Whereas maybe in my teens or my 20s, why not? Like, who's going to stop me?
Yeah,
Because
exactly. Yeah, right now
you're still at the
decisions
beginning
feel
of your
more
career.
permanent, right? So if you were like to quit your job and become a clown, you you're already thinking about the effects that it's going to have in your old life. So it feels more permanent, I think, as well.
Yeah, because you've set those foundations, you have a home, you have bills where you didn't before. So you're right, yeah, I can't it's hard now to make any decision without running through a list in the back of your mind of how will this affect the bills that I pay?
Hmm. Hmm.
How
Yeah,
will this affect the
exactly.
people that I take care
So
of, my
it's that
animals, my
kind of
partner?
bittersweet realization, right? And you're like, oh, this is fun because I have my stuff and I have, like, I choose
Yeah.
what I do and all of that. But still, it's a very controlled choice, and still, I need to be in this kind of routine to progress and yeah. But it has fun parts. I don't want to disencourage anyone to to growing up. It has fun parts, but you just have to find that balance of what can I do to make it more fun, I would say. And not to lose your inner child as well, right? So even if it's just like randomly dancing in the kitchen while you're cooking your dinner, you have to find those small ways to still remember that, okay, life is still good, even though now I'm an adult.
Yeah, and what else do you do? Because I agree that making the monotonous fun, that's kind of a good way to go. You said that you like to fold your laundry outside, which I no judgment here, I like to watch TV and fold my laundry on my couch and then eat at 5. But, yeah, like, how else are you bringing
Yeah.
fun back
I think
into your
recently I've
routine
been
so that you're
trying
not
to,
losing that inner child?
I'm a Virgo, and I don't know, I don't really like care about the signs, but I know that Virgos are usually very perfectionist and they have to have everything organized and planned. And that's something that I struggle with a lot, like kind of controlling everything. I usually mention the octopus syndrome, which is like if you have an octopus and all their arms are just trying to hold things and just controlling things, but that doesn't actually work, right? And so I've been trying to run a little bit from that and just accepting the random things that come up as well, and just like welcome them as ways to move out of that routine and move out of that dullness that sometimes catches us in life. And so, for example, tomorrow I'm watching a tennis match, something I never done before. Someone just say, "Oh, I have tickets. Do you guys want it?" And we were like, "Fine, let's go." And I think just kind of accepting the unexpected as well is something that always brings some newness to your life, and that's something that I, even though I struggle with a lot, I've been trying to be more open to, and it produces results. You feel just better generally.
I love that because I think that for me, a few years ago, I used to come from a place of no. That's how I say it. Like something new would happen. No, I don't want to deal with it. A new idea, a trip that's unplanned. Absolutely not. Like I don't want to do any of these things. But switching that mindset, coming from a place of yes, yes, I'll try that. Yes, I'll embrace that. It's been really helpful in just kind of changing my mindset so that I'm not so stuck in my ways. I'm also a Virgo. I also don't really know what it means,
Mhm.
but when you said a little like it we like
Yeah,
structure, I like structure, you like structure, that I can relate to. And trying to be more open
yeah, exactly.
has it's
And I
been really
think that also
challenging, but it's
relates with
helped
like
a lot.
dealing with uncertainty in your life, for the good side and not so good side, of course. But just dealing with things that come to you. I used to say that life finds a way to put you where you belong. And so if things come up to you, it's because it was somehow meant to be, or in the long game, it will produce some impact that you still don't not are not sure what it is, but it will put you exactly where you need to be, right? And so I feel like saying yes more to those things can help you do that. Start to dealing more with that uncertainty of whatever is going to happen tomorrow, and also helps you again getting out of that routine and just building new things, and you might even find a new hobby that you like, or a new TV show that you like or something. So I think it's just all positive, trying to be more open to whatever life brings to you.
Yeah, it is all positive. I would actually like to segue that into talking about your career in marketing and how it sounds like you said yes to a career in marketing after starting a career somewhere totally different. So, can you tell me a little bit about that story?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have a bachelor in psychology. And when I started psychology, I thought I wanted to work in neuroscience and neuropsychology, because I had a lot of like cases in my family with neuropsychological diseases in my grandpa's and all of that. So I was like, okay, let me try to find a cure for that. But then I realized, no, I don't want to spend my life in a lab. So maybe I'll try something different. And at the end of my bachelor, I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go to HR because I still can relate to people and it's still interesting. So I did that. I have a master's in HR, and that's where I started my career. I worked in HR for 1 year at my previous company. And then, as I said, life puts you exactly where you need to be, and COVID hit. And as we know, COVID hit. A lot of people got laid off. A lot of HR people, especially, were impacted. And thankfully, I was not impacted, so I was not laid off. But what happened is that my company at the time suggested I move to marketing because there wasn't a need anymore for people in HR, and there was a need for some people to help in marketing. And I was like, well, it's better than to just stay out of a job, so I think I'll just say yes. And I've been in marketing for 3 years now. So I think that I usually say that even though I know that COVID was really bad and there was like obviously a lot of people that were negatively impacted for it, I thankfully was positively impacted for it. And if it wasn't for what happened during 2020, I probably would never ended up in marketing. So, again, life puts you exactly where you need to be. And I have a lot of people that are like, wait, you've been in HR? I can't imagine you doing anything else other than marketing. And I'm like, well, that's good. That's a good sign that I'm doing something good. But yeah, that's definitely not where I started.
I love that you said yes. It's another example of you said yes. What um were you worried when you started in marketing that you wouldn't be able to pick it up, or it was totally new to you?
I'm still worried.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a challenge at the time. I was like helping the team, and thankfully I had really good leaders back then. I've had really good leaders since I started marketing, and that's like a universal truth. But yeah, I was scared. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll just do my best and see how it goes. And then I started like evolving there, having more responsibility, starting to manage some campaigns. This was a big org back then, so we had like big budgets, big goals, all of that. But yeah, I don't think there was a day in my marketing career that I was like, I fully know what I'm doing. Let's go. I'm totally comfortable in my marketing skin. That doesn't happen, at least to me. So yeah, still scared to this day.
Still terrified. Well, some of it is probably imposter syndrome and coming from a different career. Same. I fell into marketing. It wasn't on my path and then I ended up there. And that is always in the back of my mind. This isn't I don't have the training, I don't have the same experience as other people. Ultimately, I don't think it matters, but that doesn't matter in the way that we talk to ourselves. Yeah, I can say
Mhm.
that for you. I could tell you that the transferable skills from HR to marketing make you a great marketer, but there's still going to be something in the back of your mind that says, well, not as good as other people who study marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was good for me to switch from my previous company to Reach Desk as well, because I feel like in my previous company, I had a lot of that feeling of, oh, I'm just a girl from HR that they kind of lended a hand, and now I do this. And when I got hired by Reach Desk to actually do marketing, I was like, okay, I'm not the HR girl anymore, you know? Someone really hired me to do this job. Maybe that's telling me something. Of course I still have those doubts. Of course I still have like, oh, this person did all their career in marketing, or they studied it, or they have an MBA, or whatever it is. But sometimes I also feel like, no, wait, I've been doing this for like some time now, and they hired me for this. It wasn't a favor, like I felt back then, because it was back then. It was kind of like a helping hand because of all that we were going through. But then someone actually hired me to do it, so I was like, well, maybe I'm doing something right after all.
Yeah, they actually wanted you for your marketing skills.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it was kind of eye opening back then.
Yeah, that's an interesting journey to you you're like, "Oh, you guys did this for me because you felt bad that otherwise I wouldn't have a job." So you were just kind of always relying on that thought process that I'm not actually that good at this, but then when you started a new job, they hired you, they opted in, and you were like, "Yes, this is the outside validation that I really needed."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what it felt like. And again, still terrified. Like,
Mhm.
okay, now I actually need to prove them that I know what I'm doing, right? Because on the other company, I was like, well, if I failed, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. Like, I didn't came from this background. But now, if I fail, I have theoretically no excuse, right? Because that's what I was hired originally to do. So I also had, even though it was a good validation, I also had that feeling of pressure, because now you really have to meet the expectations that were set for you on this new thing that you're still discovering.
Okay, this really leads into my next question for you because that sounds stressful. I would love to hear a little bit about your journey with mental health and then your career in marketing and how those converge, and maybe how marketing causes you more stress
Yeah.
or it's made you feel more comfortable in your skin. Just tell me everything.
Yeah, I think every marketer right now feels the ups and downs of like everything that's going on. And sometimes it's really hard to not connect what happens in our company or what happens in, the results of marketing overall with who we are and what we're doing. And that sometimes can lead to like you working after hours, you doing more or saying yes more than what you really can say yes to, and just being fully immersed into your work even when you're not working, right? Because I also feel like there's a lot of this, um, not only the survivor's guilt of people that weren't impacted by any layoff recently or any like reduction or anything like that, but also that pressure of I have to be at the top in my game, because if I'm not, if I slip, I can be just like considered to be affected by a reduction. So you always have, at least I always have this in the back of my mind that I have to do more, I have to do better, better ideas, better contribution, more strategy, all of those things, because otherwise, and nothing is secure right now. Even if you're the best of the best, like we saw so many people that were unfortunately impacted, you can still be impacted by it, right? But it's always this pressure, this additional pressure to really be like do your best. Otherwise, you might just fall. Um, so yeah, it's hard for marketers out there right now. And if you don't have a really good structure, and if you don't have a really good commitment to yourself, all those burnout, depression, anxiety situations can really come up to you. And you only realize when you're already like in that bubble and you're like, oh, how do I get out from here now? Right. And so I was just talking to someone this morning and they were like, you really need to limit the hours you work, and not only the hours that you work, but your headspace as well. Like work is finished, work is finished. You don't even think about that again in your day. And I think for us that also own like the social media of our companies, that's something really hard to do because we have LinkedIn or social media apps on our phones. We can easily go there for our own profiles, but we can also jump into our brand's profile and just work a little bit more. So it's just a hard job to do right now, just to balance it out and just to commit to yourself that you have a whole life outside of your job, and you're not only Amber who works at User Gems. I'm not only Sophia who works at Reach Desk. We have a whole other life and a whole other side to us other than that. But in practical, that's really hard to do. In theory, it's all very beautiful, but it's something very hard to do.
Yes, in theory, we all say it. We're like, "Oh yeah, we just sign off. Just delete it from your phone." In practice, how? How? Well, that actually is a question that I have for you. What are you doing now to help yourself find that balance and recommit to yourself as Sophia, not Sophia at Reach Desk?
Yeah. That's a work that I need to start doing because I haven't doing that lately. But I think I'll start where it's easier. It's just commit to a working hour schedule. And when you work remotely, that's super hard to do, right? Because it's so easy for you to just head up to your office, you open your laptop. Oh, I have an email. Let me just answer this email. But I think that's the easier lift that you get as well. Like, okay, I'll just work from this time to this time. And fortunately, we're not doctors in an emergency room, so anything can wait until the other day. No one's going to die or feel bad or be sick. It's just marketing at the end of the day, right? So everything can wait for the day after. And I feel like something that really makes a difference is to have a good structure within your own team. Not only like when I say structure, I also mean like your family and the peers that you have around it to support you, but also within your own team to have people that kind of hold you accountable and like our team is really supportive on that. Like if they see someone working after hours, their first answer is like, "What are you doing here? It's not your time to be here. This can wait until tomorrow. Just go." And we also have that tradition of scheduling Slack messages, for example, so people are not bothered. So even if someone goes there after hours, they won't have any messages to sort out only the day after. But again, I think it's very hard to do, right? Especially working remotely. But I will start with the working hours, which I think will make a huge difference for me. And then I really want to find an hobby, because if I have something that I really want to do after the work is done, and just all that build up to, oh, fine, when I finish up work today, I'll do this that I love. It also helps you kind of disconnect a little bit and just put your head into something else. I'm not sure yet what is it going to be. I don't know if I would like plants, because I always kill my plants, but maybe we can try that. Or guitar. That's something that I also was like to my boyfriend. Well, you need, now that we live together, you need obviously to learn. I need to learn how to play it, and you're going to teach me. So I think that's two good things that I will do, and I recommend people doing, is really committing to a working schedule. Nothing is going to happen if they don't reply at 7 p.m. in their day, and just finding stuff that they like outside of their job that makes them excited to end the job and just do whatever they like. So I'll try. I'll keep you posted on how that goes.
Do, especially the finding a hobby. It's so easy to say. Again, it's another one of those things where it's easy to say in theory, you should get a hobby. Um, First of all, a lot of them cost money. And then
Yeah.
second of all, it is hard to get out of the mindset that if you're going to do something, you have to do it right and perfect, especially with the jobs that we have. It's like we want to do something right, we want to see some sort of benefit from it. And hobbies are purely just for fun.
Hmm.
Like just fun, just to not even like you could be a gardener and
Hmm.
love it and still kill your plants, and that's okay. Like that's kind of what a hobby is. But getting
Yeah.
out of that mindset that it has to be productive and it has to give me some sort of like life benefit or it
Mhm.
earns me money is so difficult.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And also the fact that you're like, I don't know if again if it's because I'm a perfectionist or not, but that fact where I'm like, well, if I'm not working or doing something that helps me professionally or learning some skill that I can apply to my job, then I'm not being productive. Like, what am I doing with my time? I'm just wasting time. And that's not true. If you're just sitting on a balcony eating chocolate or ice cream or whatever, and you're still being productive with your time because you're just staying there, just being. But it's so hard to do, right? And I think that's how our lives are structured right now with all like the technology that we have. Everything moves super fast. You can't keep up with the news ever. You can't keep up with others are doing ever because it just moves. So if you don't do nothing, you actually feel like you're not doing nothing valuable or productive, right? So it's definitely a mentality that needs to change, and I feel like personally, our generation struggles with that a lot. We just have that feeling that we need to always be on, always be like perfect and never failing, and it's hard because at least here in Portugal, like a lot of young people are struggling a lot with mental health, like never before, and it's worrying, right? So I think sometimes we just need to put our foot on the pedal and just stop and just enjoy, and that's very hard to do. And yesterday I was watching a Parks and Rec episode, and they were like, "Oh, I have this idea," and it got solved. And then Leslie, which is the main character, was like, "Okay, cool. Let's work. Let's put our hands together." And her friends were like, "Wait, just enjoy this thing that you've conquered. Is it always like this? You never enjoy what you've conquered?" And she was like, "No, my way of enjoying is just getting to work." So it's a lot of, I think, what we do, right? We don't enjoy things. even if it's just sitting outside in the sun, not doing anything productive.
Yeah, we don't enjoy things, and I see myself a lot in the Leslie Knope character, not the positivity, I'm not quite so positive, but where if work is your outlet and then it's also the only thing that you celebrate and somehow it's your hobby, then the only thing to do when you accomplish something is to work more. There's
Mhm.
nothing else there. I found myself questioning, is work the only thing that I care about? Which sounds really dark, but
Mhm.
um, I've been in a situation where I didn't have work and I was desperately searching for work, and I was so depressed. I was so depressed, and like it seemed to me that the only thing that could bring me joy was to have a job. Isn't that strange?
Yeah. But I think a lot of us struggle with that, right? It's almost like our whole personality is tied to our job title, right? It's almost like, those people joke a lot about the vegetarians, that they introduce themselves and they're like, "Oh, I'm Sophia, I'm vegetarian." I feel like our generation is a lot like that with jobs, right? It's just like, "Oh, I'm Sophia, I work in marketing." Nobody cares. That's not who you are. You are much more than that. But we somehow feel that this need of just our job is everything that we have. It's everything that we are. And again, then those situations of like burnout and just that feeling of never being good and your job is never good and you are never good for your job as well haunts us. And some time ago I read something about your job doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be good enough.
Mhm.
And sometimes you also just need to be good enough for that job. Because if people hired you, then they probably believe that you have the skills. So you probably don't always need to be kind of proving yourself and overdoing yourself because you're already good enough. But it's so hard for us to realize that we're good enough and that we can just be ourselves and everything is fine. We always have this thing that no, we're not. Everything that I do is closely related with who I am at my job, and I can't be my full self at my job, and all this pressure. So it's kind of fun to realize that, and it's also a little bit dark, as you were saying. Like, okay, this is really the only thing that brings me joy? What happens if sometimes I like change a company or change job roles? Will I be sad forever? It's a work of finding things outside of it that you also are passionate about. Again, as you said, it can be being a gardener and still killing all your plants. You're just trying at least.
Yeah. And I also want to go back to something that you shared about your current work environment, how other people will call you out if you're working when you're not supposed to. And I've actually been thinking lately that as like you and I, we're aware now of how our relationship with work is a little bit broken and we're trying to consciously do something for ourselves about that. I think that we should also step up and be doing that for other people. Like it sounds like your team is, where they're saying, get off, go away. We don't want you. Like maybe they'll block you if you keep coming on Slack, and I think that having that awareness means that we need to step it up a little bit more, where if we're talking to someone, our first question isn't what do you do, but it's what do you enjoy, what are your
Mhm.
hobbies. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like that's, as I said, like it really makes a difference to have that kind of environment, and not only about like working hours and just you know but also about that kind of coffee conversation that we used to have when we were in the office and now we're remotely, about what you did in your weekend, like who were you with, like what are your hobbies right now, is there a book you're reading that you love, even before asking, okay, what is the project that you're working on, that we can collaborate together, as you're saying. And it's so funny because you were saying that, and I just remember that we've recently come to this house, and we were introducing ourselves to our neighbors, and one of the first questions was like, "Okay, what do you guys do for a living? Right? What do you work on?" And it's always kind of the first question that we go for. And again, our lives are tied so much to our work, and they are like that for 40 years or so, that we again lose sight of sometimes who we are outside of it and what do we like outside of it. And you know, life is so much more than that, but we sometimes forget about it. We just got to be reminded sometimes.
Yeah, like I'm a marketer and I hope that's the least interesting thing about me. I hope that I'm more interesting than my job, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Especially
So
because it's really hard to explain what a marketer does to people that
the job titles are so wild. They're so different. And then they all, like, I'm a social media manager. Part of what I do is social media management, which means different things at different companies. It's actually more fun to not have to explain my job and to just talk about other things.
yeah, yeah.
If you could go back and reintroduce yourselves to your neighbors, and
Mm.
instead of starting with what do you do for a living, what would you say?
Okay, I would say like what I would ask them.
Hmm.
Interesting. Um, I would probably ask them what's the best place, because they're from here and I'm not. So I'll probably ask them what's the best place to catch some sun and drink some like cold smoothie or something in the weekend. Yeah, and just like I would ask them, what do you guys love to do together as well? Because sometimes being immersed in our jobs, we also forget about the people that surround us. So yeah, I would value those connections that people have with each other as well, because that also helps us recognize it in ourselves. When some people ask a couple like, "How long have you been together?" or "What do you do for fun together?" It allows us to, oh wait, we haven't done that in a while. Let's do that again. So yeah, I think that would be two cool questions to ask.
Yeah, there's still time. There's still time to ask them those questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And how do you think you would introduce yourself without mentioning your job?
Mm. I would think I'd say that it's so hard. That's such a hard exercise, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Wow. I think I would say that I love to bake stuff, even though I'm not that good at it. I love to bake cakes. I love to try new things, especially food. And I love to travel and read and get to know people's stories, I guess.
No, I love that. Get to know people's stories.
Yeah.
Or you're
Which is
just
a
you're
little bit about what you do with the
yeah.
podcast.
I'm just so curious about people. I like to say it's one of the most annoying things about me is that I ask a lot of questions, but it's also it makes me a decent listener. I think it, I don't know, makes me interesting, I hope.
Yeah, yeah. And I think people love sharing their stories. And sometimes it's just a matter of having someone who listens to their stories, actually. So it's good that we like to hear what others have to say and what hear what goes in their minds.
Yes. And I wanted to talk to marketers specifically because I think a lot of times that we don't have this space, right? Because every time we are professionally engaged on a podcast, it's to talk about a campaign or our
Hmm.
hot take or like what's going on in the marketing world. Um, and my question for everyone is just like, how do you feel? How are you feeling as a marketer right now? And the general consensus is like stressed. We're really stressed. So like we want to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I usually used to say, like, unfortunately, I've still yet to do marketing when everything is fine. Because I started marketing in 2020. Like, everything was just burning all around me. And then 2021 was almost like, okay, the year of recovery. Let's it's pacing up again and everything. And then we hit 2022 and we thought, oh, this year is going to be amazing. No, it wasn't, right? And so I'm really looking forward to that, to not be a stressed marketer. And I'm not sure if it ever happens in your marketing career, but it hasn't been a couple of tough years for us. And we have to give credit to people that are still here and haven't like given up yet, because it's very easy to do that, and it's very hard for everyone that has this job, and obviously other jobs as well. But it's not been a couple of easy years for us.
That is so true. I think there's been a lot of like news to walk eggshells around. Things have happened in the economy, and then we have to change our messaging. We have to change everything on a dime. And I would love, if anyone has made it this far in this episode, can you tell us what it's like to work in marketing when it's easy? Is that possible? I would, was it only possible in 1900 working for Coke when everyone knew about you? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a question that comes to mind as well. Like, is this ever gets any easier or no? And we'll just have to get used to it.
I kind of thrive on the challenge. Do you thrive on the challenge?
Hmm. Yeah. Even though when you're challenged, you always also have to be ready to just like give your hand to your imposter syndrome friend. It's when we grow, right? And it's when we learn the most, and it's when we really have to focus and just do whatever we gotta do. I don't think if we were challenged, we would be so good, right? Because if we don't have a need, if people are just not poking us like you need to do this, you need to grow, it's you need to present this to the executive team or something like that, then you'll never face those fears and you'll never get out of your comfort zone, and you'll just stay there, you know?
Yeah. On that note, I'm wondering if you could share any words of advice you have for, let's say, new marketers. They're in their first 3 years of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
What would you want to share with them, especially if they're trying to support their mental health as they grow with their career?
Yeah, I would say that even though it's quite hard to do, never like forget or lose sight that you're a lot more than the work that you do. And especially in marketing, there are a lot of variables that impact what you do besides what you're actually doing. So don't ever feel like the results that your company is attaining are directly attributed to what you're doing, because they're not. And just really don't forget that it's a hard job, but fortunately, there's more and more community here to support. So don't forget to be vulnerable when you have to be vulnerable. Don't forget to raise your hand and say, I'm not okay when you're not okay, and to really make your leaders and your team know that. Because I also feel like within marketing, we sometimes forget that we are people, we're selling to people, everyone is just people. And I usually joke and say that I'm not a B2B marketing, I'm an age to age marketing, human to human. And just don't forget that you're human too, and make others see that, acknowledge that, and embrace that again. Because if you're not okay, then probably tomorrow you'll be better, but embrace that today you're not okay. And just take your time, you know? Don't rush things, don't ever feel like you're not doing what you're doing, because as my lovely manager used to say, even if you're only giving 80% on a certain day, that's the best that you can do that day. And if on the day afterwards you can give 120%, that was the best that you could give that other day. Just make sure that you always give your best, and even though it might not be 100%, it was your best. So yeah, don't forget to be human, always give your best, and don't forget that you're much more than what you do for a living.
Those are three great pieces of advice I wish I had had when I was starting out in marketing. To close us out, do you have a joke that you could share with me? It could be marketing related or not.
It's not marketing related. It's a very bad joke. It's one of my dad's oldest jokes. Whenever he meets a new person, he tells this very old joke to them. And it goes like this. So there were two friends that were talking, and one of them was really mad and sad, and he was just saying, I hate how everyone just stick their noses on what I'm doing. It's insane. I don't have freedom. And his friend was like, okay, but what do you do for a living? And he was like, no, it's really bad. Everyone just sticks their noses into what I'm doing. I'm so frustrated. And his friend was like, okay, but what do you do? Well, I do Kleenexes for people to wipe their nose.
Oh no.
I told you it was really bad.
That's so did he make that one up?
No.
That's his favorite joke. I love that joke.
It's really dry humor, but it's what we have.
Well, I love your sense of humor, and thank you so much for sharing just your sense of humor, your point of view about humanity at work. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure. And it's my first one, so it was a really, really cool experience. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I want to give you one, let's say 60 seconds. What do you want to say to the world? Is there anything that you want to promote? Is there anything like in final note that you want to end on?
Yeah, I think, again, I don't want to have this like work or marketing related because I feel like everyone's tired of that. And today I just got into the loophole of kindness pages and kindness like videos on TikTok. So if I just had very few words to share, it's just be kind to others, but especially to yourself. We sometimes put others' priorities, others' needs on top of ours. But as someone I know once said, if you don't have your cup full, you don't have anything to fill others' cups. So be kind to yourself and to others as well.
You heard it here first, folks. Be kind to yourself. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for having me. It was really fun.